Ladies and gentlemen,
this is Gamertag Radio.
Welcome to a brand new episode here at Gamertag Radio, actually episode 1521. This is your host, Danny Peña, and this is a solo episode. No P, no Paris. We were having some technical difficulties, so we couldn't record live, but stay tuned. We're probably going to be recording all together, very, very soon. A couple updates. Next week, it's a holiday here in the United States, Memorial Day weekend. So the plan is there's no live recording, but I most likely will have something set up for that weekend. For like Sunday or Monday, I'll probably release an episode there, but I'll keep you posted if there's any changes. But I am planning to have a couple of interviews coming up that are already scheduled for the future. So one of them is about the new Tribeca Games Festival that's happening in June, right after Summer Game Fest. So we're going to be talking to the team about the new changes, the schedule. I know they're going to have Remedy there to talk about Control 2. And I believe the founders of Rockstar Games, they're going to have a talk there during the festival. So that's going to be very interesting. And I would love to hear more about their plans for this year. So stay tuned for that. The interview is coming out later this week. And most likely we'll have a separate episode with Rihanna. We're going to be talking about Sega, all the changes coming up from Sega, all the new games and everything that was talked about during the investor call a couple of days ago. So we're going to be talking about that, why there's so much potential with those games coming out in the future. So stay tuned. That's going to be available here on Gamertag Radio. If you would like to be part of Fan Mail, which we would love to get more and more calls and emails from everyone, make sure to hit us up. Email fanmail@gamertagradio.com or go to speakpipe.com/gamertagradio, or the easiest way, you could give us a call, 786-273-7GTR. That's 786-273-7GTR. So we have right now 2 voicemails that was sent a couple weeks back. We were planning to do this all together, but like timing, scheduling, it just wasn't possible for us to play during the episodes, but during the recording, I mean. But I'm going to play it for this episode, and I'm going to try my best to answer the question. So let's go with Fan Mail here only on Gamertag Radio.
Send us your feedback or questions. Give us a call at 786-273-7GTR. Email us at fanmail@gamertagradio.com or leave a message on speakpipe.com/gamertagradio.
All right, so we're gonna go with the first voicemail, and let's see what's this question about.
Hello, Gamertag Radio. This is Jay, recording from the East Coast again. I just want to say thank you so much for answering my question in the last few episodes ago. It was the Project Helix video. I was actually with my friend, and I was like fangirling out. It was so funny. It was great. You guys had really great responses, so thank you so much for responding to me. But my question for you guys this time now is, and this is a little bit broad maybe, so I do apologize for that. What do you guys notice is different between the older generation of gamers versus the newer generation of gamers? So for example, what do you guys think both generations, older and newer generations, do you think that they have a difference in values or a difference in attitudes when it comes to maybe hardware, high-end hardware, older hardware, or when it comes to video games, newer video games, older video games, maybe remakes, maybe remasters, ports, how video games are made, how they look, things like that, just to throw some ideas out there. And I'm asking this because I just turned 24, and you guys are a little bit older than me. And I always thought this would be an interesting conversation because I'm also friends with gamers that are a lot older than me. And I always wondered, like, what are some things that they probably feel differently about compared to someone like me that's a little bit older, a little bit younger than them. So yeah, thank you.
Ooh, Jay, thank you so much for that great question. So a couple of things, man. So, I've been a gamer since the 80s. I remember, my grandmother bought me the Atari 2600. That was like my first video game console. Then I upgraded to Nintendo, Super Nintendo, and so on, right? I had Sega Genesis, Sega CD, and so on, right? So, I think nowadays the younger generation doesn't really care much about exclusives. I think it's more about access, So let's just say, I know you were mentioning that you were with your friend. If she has a PlayStation 5 and you have a Switch 2 or an Xbox, and there's a game that's available that you two could play together, I think that's what matters most is access to that content. Can I play this with my friends, right? I think less and less people care about exclusives, in my opinion. You could talk to any of my nephews and nieces. They're very they just don't care. They just want to play the games. Is this game is available and is playable on this console? That's all they care about, So another thing now for the older generation, and I think this is something where, I've been seeing this a lot lately, is the older generation are kind of still stuck on the old way and doesn't like change. I've been seeing that a lot lately too, so if there's any games that, like now with Xbox going multi-platform and so on, a lot of people don't like that. They want to keep it the old way, the whole exclusives and so on. And to me, I'm all about growth and all about how can more people play these games? How can they get more access and so on? Don't make it difficult, that type of thing. Because I'm all about how can we get a new audience in different ways, not only with the things that I do here on GTR, but for just gaming in general, indie companies, third party, how can we get a new group of people playing our games, buying our product, and so on? I think a lot of us don't like change. We would like to just stay with the old way. And I think it is important for people for companies to have that type of conversation, educate people, why are the reasons, why companies are making these changes and so on, right? And another thing too I've been noticing is, back then when we used to get news and information back in the days, it was once in the blue, once every month. Maybe we'll get some news from magazines. Once in a while you get to see stuff through websites and message boards. But I think now with how the way we consume information, especially with news and everything, it's just nonstop news everywhere. It's nonstop. And it's hard to stand out now, and people will forget within minutes something else pop up and it will overshadow whatever news just came out. So that's something that I've been seeing a lot lately, especially with the younger generation. They're not used to the whole, games once in a while, news once in a while. They're not used to that. They're still used to of getting content and news and everything all the time. So that's the thing. When I read this a couple months ago, I think it was Matt Booty from Xbox. I think it was in an interview that he said something about their biggest competition is TikTok. Biggest competition for Xbox is TikTok. And that's actually true. I know a lot of people laughed about it, but it is true. How can you get the attention of those people that are always on TikTok for them to play games? Years ago, games was the number one thing right now when it comes to compared to entertainment, movies, TV, books. It was always on top for the past couple of years, right? But now with social media like TikTok, short form videos, that's been getting a lot of attention from the younger generation, and they're not playing as much games because of that, So how can a company like Nintendo, Xbox, and PlayStation and so on, how can they convince the younger generation to play the games, to buy the product and so on? So that's the thing. I think the younger generation, there's so much stuff going on right now with content that it's hard to keep up with everything, So That's another thing that I've been seeing too, is just the intention that companies would like to get from like the younger generation, you know? So that's something I've been seeing that for the past couple of years, is just that, you know? So I'm not afraid of change. I think for me, you know, being as an older gamer, I think the more I've been educating myself on how it is with the industry, has been helping me to be more open-minded. I think a lot of us are not into that stuff, like into the you know, having an open mind, changes, seeing in the business and so on. Like, people are not liking that. They love the old way because they're comfortable with that. They're used to that, you know? So I'm all about growth. And, you know, if there's something where we could get a whole new audience to support a game, I'm all about that, you know? But I think you have to do it in the right way. You know, I don't support layoffs or AI or anything like that. Like, I'm not into that stuff. That's not me at all. I'm all about like growth and how companies could hire more people to be part of the industry, studio, etc. That is going to help growth within the industry overall, you know? So that's what I'm all about. Another thing too that I've been seeing a lot especially from the internet, just from both generations, there's been a lot of misinformation out there. A lot of misinformation. You know, just a couple of days ago, I just saw something about, you know, that this Halo game that's coming out on PS5 will be the last one or something, which is not true. That's never been announced from Xbox. That's something that I don't see that happening at all. You know, it's like, why would they introduce a new game, an old game, to the PlayStation 5 audience, and then Xbox decide to, I don't know, cancel it and just make it exclusive? I just don't see that. That the messaging, look, if we thought messaging was confusing a couple years ago with which game should be multi-platform and which not, and doing it this way again, like this, the canceling and all, that's even worse in my opinion. You know, make it even more confusing for the consumer, for the younger generation and older generation. Very, very confusing, you know? Like with the success of Forza Horizon 6 that just came out, that game is eventually going to come out later this year on PS5, you know? That game is going to be a huge success for PlayStation console, you know? So I think misinformation has been all over the place the past couple of years, and I would love to see change when it comes to that, but I think that's going to take a while for us to see that change, you know? So that's one thing that we need to be careful, and I've been seeing that from both sides of the generation, of sharing misinformation through social media, to text, through whatever. And I think we should do a better job on that. And when we see something that's not true, we should call the people out and mention, this is not true. I would love to see more of that, you know, from both sides, from like younger and older generation, you know? So I think that's something that I do think that's a big difference between the both generations. And from a lot of people, a lot of us gamers, younger and older generation, we do not care about the most powerful console. I think it's all about, can I play my games without bugs, without, you know, performance is good and so on. I'm going to give you a perfect example. You know, a couple months ago, Resident Evil Breaking was coming out, and I decided, and I did this on purpose, I requested a Nintendo Switch 2 code of Resident Evil Requiem from Capcom. And the reason is, I played the game a couple months back in New York City. It was during a preview event, and it played great. I was like, wow, I was so impressed how well the game looked on a Nintendo Switch 2. So I decided, hey, let me get this game on the Switch 2. I want to show people that it is possible to play this game. And I played it. It was a lot of fun. I played the whole thing from start to finish, and it's one of my favorite games of this year. And that was on Nintendo Switch 2. If you compare that version compared to like PC, PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, that's the weakest one. And it still looked great. It still played great. So I think more and more in the future, we're going to get to see people where they just care about consoles. Is it cheap? Price, right? Can I still play these games that's also available on other platforms? Can I still have a great experience playing that? I think we're going to care more about that than graphics, so I think we're going to get to see less of that, and I think it is important for companies who have different options, not just like, hey, we only have one version, the most powerful version. No, give it options. That's the thing that I love about Xbox 360 when there was like 2 SKUs. Now with PlayStation 5, there's 2 SKUs. Xbox, they did the same thing with Xbox One and also the Xbox Series. Give people options, and they could decide if they want the most powerful console or not. I think that is something where it's going to help more people to buy products because, look, at the end of the day, things are very, very expensive. People do want to have a choice if they want to play that or not. And if it's a cheaper option, I think the majority of people are going to go to the cheaper option. I think that's another thing when it comes to like older generation, younger generation. It's like, not everybody can afford a $1,000 console, let's just say, or PC or whatever, but I bet they could afford a $399, $499 console, which is a lot cheaper than paying $1,000. You get what I'm saying? So times are tough and things are very, very expensive. So if there's an option to buy a game or a console that is cheaper, I think a lot of us, both generations, are going to go with that, so that is a huge, huge difference that I've been seeing now for like the past couple of years, and this is a great question too, man, because I think a lot of us never really sat down and like think about that, like the difference between the generations, because look, we can't be stuck on the old way, the way how we play games and so on. It probably worked years ago, like this, for example, when it comes to like exclusives and so on. It used to be a powerful thing back then, but I think nowadays, I don't know. It's like I don't know, like it's not really working well. Sometimes it will, sometimes it don't. So like, I'll give you a perfect example. So like, if you think about a game like Sorrows, one of my favorite games of this year. I love Sorrows, love Returnal. That game, especially Sorrows, is an exclusive for PlayStation 5. The numbers of sales has been slower than Returnal, and there's a lot of people with PlayStation 5. Why is that? But I bet you if that game was available on other platforms, it will sell a lot more. Let's say if that game was available on PC, let's make believe that game was available on Xbox or Nintendo Switch 2. That thing will sell. But I think that game is not selling well, man. Like it's selling, I think it was like 300,000 copies, something like that, right? Which behind the scenes probably made, pretty good money, right? But I know PlayStation want to sell even more, So what is it that they need to do? Do they still continue with having these games exclusive on the console? It's a different era, I think, in gaming. It's not the same. And when you mention that to a lot of people get mad about that, by having that type of conversation of like exclusives or not exclusives. So I don't know. I'm all about like growth and all about access. How can we make those changes? But a lot of the older generation especially, they don't want to hear it. They do not want to hear it. They will get super angry about that and so on. But that's the way I think, So, games like Ratchet and Clank, one of my favorite games of this generation also. Look at the sales numbers on that. So how can we make that change? And Jay, look, let me ask you this question. Do you care about exclusive? Do you care that the industry has been changing the past couple of years? Do you really care about that? Like, I'm very curious to hear your thoughts. Like, you can send us a voicemail, email about that, because I think it is important to also, for us older generation, to hear what the younger generation think about. But I also feel like the younger generation, it is important for you guys to learn the history about gaming, learn about the things that worked back in the days and things that is not working now. Compare. And what is it that do you think companies need to do for the industry to grow even more? I think if we continue doing the same exact thing, we're going to be left out. A lot of companies going to get left out. I'll give you a perfect example, Jay. And I think I talked about this during Icon. And actually, Icon, I believe they're going to post a video of my panel, I think in a couple of days. But one thing that I mentioned in the panel that everybody agreed on is it is important to adapt on whatever is happening. Learn on new tech that's been happening, that's been coming out, that it is good for us to educate ourselves and learn about that technology. For example, when I started, there was no iTunes, there was no Spotify, none of that, right? But then it came out, and then I had to adapt and learn about the process of how can I distribute my content to those platforms. Then, apps came out, and, there's YouTube, but now I have to adapt, like, okay, YouTube videos. How can, I can record video with P in Paris and Re. Well, before Re, it was P in Paris. How can I record those videos and put it on YouTube? But now, the past couple of years, now it's short form videos. Now I have to get used to that. Like, I have to pick the right short form, make it 1 minute to 3 minutes long or under, and post it on TikTok and post in other places. That's another thing I had to adapt. And a lot of people are not used to that. They're used to the old way. You are going to get left behind if you don't work on that, if you don't learn about the tech and new ways how to promote your content. That's the same exact thing with gaming companies. They need to adapt. They need to start doing new things that is going to help the sales for their product. And if they don't, they're going to get left behind. I think that's a huge difference there too, right? So thank you so much for that question. I think it is important to have these type of conversations because I think a lot of us, we don't want to like make any changes or anything. We just want to keep it the old way and that's it. And I'm like, it worked back in the days, but it's not going to work nowadays. We're in a different time. Very, very different time. And, I don't take things personal. I would like to learn why these changes have been happening. I know a lot of people will get mad and start posting all kinds of crazy stuff online and everything because of that, but hey, it is important to learn about these things, Great question, by the way. So we're going to go now with the second question. And this is from Keon. So shout out to Keon. He's always sending us questions over here at GTR. So let's listen to it very quick.
What's going on, Gamertag Radio? How are you good brothers doing? This is Keon calling from Baltimore. I just had a quick question for y'all. I just wanted to know, in this day and age, the technology that's inside of gaming, the voice acting being as great as it is, graphics, pretty much to a certain degree, not having any limits of these developers being able to get out their full image or what they're trying to portray in a game. Do you think that we still need to get these movie adaptations of these games? I mean, I know Mario Galaxy just came out, movie almost made $1 billion. That kind of makes sense because a lot of Nintendo games, at least Mario, the storyline is basic, for the most part. So I get that you might want to embellish in something like that. But other titles, even though it was done well, The Last of Us, I still didn't really see a point of that. I mean, of course, more publicity for the IP, I get that. But in this day and age, do we really need these movie adaptations? I don't think so. I think that we're at a point now where what we're playing are basically the movie, if you ask me, but I might be off. But I was just interested to know you guys' thoughts. As always, you guys are awesome at what you do. Thank you so much for giving your listeners a platform to be able to ask you guys questions, and you guys have a good one and take care. Bye-bye.
Shout out to Keon. By the way, Keon, that's a great question. Great question. And I have a lot of things to say about that. I think it is cool to see more games now into TV series, movies, etc. I think that's really, really cool. Now we get to see parks and if you know about Universal Studios, they have also Horror Nights. We've seen also Horror Nights where they grab the game and they turn into like a haunted house. Like I know they did that with like Fallout and so on. I think that's really, really cool. And here's why, Keon. And I mentioned this during the last question from Jay. that it is cool to see that, and it is important for companies to do that. And the reason is, and if they do it right, not if it's something crappy, then nobody's going to take it seriously, right? But if it's really good, that is a way to get a whole new audience to get into the ecosystem, into the story, or by the game or console, whatever. Again, access is important. Access in different ways, not just only in games, but also in movies and TV shows. So, perfect example, Fallout. It's part of the Fallout universe. The Fallout TV series is on Amazon. Amazing, amazing story. I love the cast. I met the cast a couple years ago for season 1. Met the producers, the writers, director, everybody. And it's really cool. It's not exactly like the story of the Fallout games. They have it's part of the Fallout universe, but this is a way for people, like, if they get really into the story and they're so curious about it, it's another way for people to get into the story, buy the games, buy the books or whatever. You get what I'm saying? So, like, if you do it right, I think it is cool to see those type of things. You know, Mario is going to help Nintendo, not only Universal Studios with the park, right, in Japan and also here in LA and in Florida. People are going to buy a console because they just love Mario. Like, my daughter knows about Mario. I remember seeing the toys, I think it was in Happy Meal at McDonald's, of Mario for like a whole month while promoting the movie. My daughter knows all the characters. She's only 2 years old. So when she gets older, I bet she wants to play more of the Mario games. You know, again, it's about educating people, getting into the industry, buying the games and so on. Because here's the thing, Keon, and I said this earlier, we can't just stick with let's company just release games and that's it. How can you get new audiences in different ways to promote the medium? Is it through books? Is it through TV shows, podcasts, movies, etc., theme parks, haunted houses, or whatever? A game like Fallout has been successful because of the series. The Witcher, I remember when the first season of The Witcher came out, I think season 1 and season 2, it got a lot of people curious about the game and about the books, and people bought it. I remember the sales numbers of just the game alone went through the roof after season 1 of The Witcher, right? Another game that I can think of, The Last of Us. I'm going to give you a perfect example. I went to the premiere of season 1 of The Last of Us, See You in LA with Rihanna, right? And they gave us a jacket that says The Last of Us. You know, I think it says also HBO. I can't remember because it's been a while, but I remember I had to travel to New York City, I think it was, and I had that jacket on. And I went to like a restaurant or a spot to get something to eat, right? And there was someone that was the cashier, saw me with a jacket and was like, "Oh, did you work on the game?" I go, No. He's like, "Oh, so you worked on the movie, on the TV series?" I go, No. It's just I went to the premiere. I told him I just got this jacket. He's like, "Oh man, I'm a big fan of the series." And I bet you, Keon, a lot of people that got to see that series that never heard about the game. You probably know the story, but a lot of people don't know about the story. That was their first time getting into an introduction about the world of The Last of Us. How cool is that, man? Getting a whole new audience that doesn't know anything about what's going to happen in part 2. Never heard of part 1. And this is like the first time learning about it. But there's also ways how people can get into the universe of that game by watching Fallout, or like right now, Resident Evil, the movie that's coming out. Again, I don't know if it's good or not. I have no idea. But watching that trailer, that's not from none of the Resident Evils that we played. It's part of the universe that's connected to those stories. And that's really, really cool. You know, we got to see the trailer and I'm like, oh, wait, I know that enemy. I know this location in the game. Like, you get what I'm trying to say? So it's like a different point of view. I think that's the right way, in my opinion. That's the right way to create a cool story that's connected to the universe. You know, like there's even podcasts that's part of the universe of a game or whatever. People listen to it, they get into it, and they'll buy the product, they buy the game because they got into the story, because the story is so good. So if they do it right, I don't have no issues when it comes to that. I think that's a great way to get a whole new audience. I'm going to give you another example, Keon, and you were a long-time listener. Do you remember a couple years back, we created a Far Cry 5 podcast series? And look, we never got hired from Ubisoft or anything like that. It was more of us creating an idea. How can we, interview the voice actors of the game, but turn into a series to get people into the series, into the story of the series, and then potentially buy the game, right? So, again, we didn't get paid or anything like that. This was just out of love, and it was just a cool idea. We interviewed the actors that were in the game of Far Cry 5. And when we did the interview, it was just them as the character. We were asking them questions. It was us podcasting, investigating about Hope County, why there's a cult, why these people are against the cult, why are they against the father. And we did that. And we managed to get a lot of people to get into the story. And look, we had no script, nothing. There were things they couldn't say, and we pulled it off. So the first 3 or 4 episodes, it was with the regular characters, and then the last episode, the cult captured me and Pete in Paris, and it took us to the father. And the father is now interviewing us, like, why are you here in Hope County? Why are you investigating us? And so on. Just with that alone, it got a lot of people into the series. That's what I'm trying to say, Keon. That has nothing to do with the script of the story of the game, because I had no idea what the game was going to be about. I only know the basics, right? So we did it, and people listened to that podcast, and guess what? I bet you were one of them. You bought the game because of that series. I got a lot of messages from people like, yo, I really got into the story, and I got the game because I was so into it. That's what companies are trying to do, Keon. They trying to get a whole new audience to get into the universe, the story of that game by watching podcasts, not podcasts, TV series, movies, etc. And that potentially will get them into buying the game. So if it's done right, it's going to work out. If this doesn't work out, there's going to be a failure. People are not going to get into it. People are not going to buy it. So I think I'm very curious to see what's going to happen with, like a Gears of War series. Halo, for example, that didn't work out. They completely changed the story. It was very confusing. It just didn't work out. And I think it is important for the writers of that game to be involved, or the developers to be involved of that project to make the story of the TV or movie better. So it worked out with Mario Brothers. It worked out with The Last of Us, and especially Fallout. I know Todd Howard and a lot of people were involved in that. I seen him at the premieres, having conversation with him. He's excited, and the team are excited about the series. So like that's something that is cool, Keon. And I get it. I get why you're saying that they don't need to, but honestly, at the end of the day, companies are going to do that because, one, it is money. It is a business. A lot of these Hollywood studios are now investing so much money on getting stories from games or whatever, like getting an IP from a game, and now they're creating content for TV or movie. That's easy money. There's an audience for that. It worked out with Pokemon. Look at Pokemon. Look at Detective Pikachu. That's another one that came out. It worked out. Mortal Kombat, a success. I think now with Street Fighter, I think that's going to work out too, because a lot of people are going to go and watch it. That's the only thing, man. Again, we can't keep it like I was saying to Jay earlier. We can't keep it the old way. How can we introduce gaming to a whole new audience for our industry to grow? There's different ways. If we do it the right way, it's going to help the industry overall. That's the whole point of the both questions I'm asking to you guys. So, but now, thank you so much for these questions. I think it is important to have these type of conversations. I know a lot of us, we don't want no changes. We like to keep it the same way over and over again, but eventually there's no growth by just doing that, So that's how I see it. Let me know if you guys agree or disagree. Please hit me up, fanmail@gamertagradio.com. That's fanmail@gamertagradio.com. Also, before we wrap it up, shout out to everybody that's been subscribing to our YouTube channel. I really haven't been promoting that at all. Just like word of mouth, let people find it. I think the audio version is what people I've been promoting the most. So thanks to everybody that been subscribing and checking out the podcast, not only through there, but on all podcast platforms. Thank you so much for the support. All right, we're going to wrap it up here. Again, we have more content coming up. Also, Summer Game Fest is coming up in the next couple weeks. A very, very important time in gaming. There's going to be so much content coming up from there. I have a lot of stuff booked already. Like my calendar is completely booked. So I'll keep you posted on the things that's coming for GTR. But lots of hands-on. I have some interviews and so on. So I'm very excited. Can't wait to share the content to everyone. All right. So any questions, hit me up. And thank you for listening. And until next time, I'm out. Take care. Bye.